What's going on YouTube? This is Chaos Rain here, and today's video I'm going to be doing something just a little bit different. So to start off, I'm going to be, explaining a little bit. I've been into Magic for many years, as some of you who have watched my channel and or know me from PlayStation playing Path of Exile know. I am going into a lot of my variety streaming, whether that be other games. I do plan to play Path of Exile, but I also have been playing Magic the Gathering for upwards of 15 to 20 years, maybe a little bit around that mark, probably a little bit less, a little bit more, give or take. It's been so long. So today we're going to go over our Myrkul Lord of Bones deck tech, and I'm going to explain why I choose every single creature in this deck and why I like this deck so much against a bunch of players who usually have fast decks, just tend to not like this deck. But let's go ahead and get into it. First, we are using Myrkul Lord of Bones. Myrkul Lord of Bones, as you see here, is a 7/5 7-drop creature, which says he's indestructible if you have half-life, just like any of the other gods from this series, via the Commander, Commander Legends 2. And his other effect says when a creature you control dies, you may exile it and make it an enchantment token, but it loses all its other types. So keep that in mind as we go through this deck, because we do have other effects that involve enchantments or exile or stuff like that, which are very good in synergy with this guy. So first we have our non-legendary creatures. Our first creatures here is Viscera Seer. Viscera Seer is a 1-drop sack outlet. It says sack a creature to scry 1. We don't like people playing on our turns because we tend to go off and make them hate living, so Grand Abolisher says you can't do anything on my turn. Our first infinite combo piece is a direct infinite combo with Myrkul Lord of Bones. Making this an enchantment will make it an enchantment that untaps itself for free and taps for green mana infinitely. So this with Myrkul is just insane as it is. We have Blood Artist. Blood Artist is by itself meh, with all the sack outlets and the ability to steal creatures and just continuously sack them. This basically says any number of players die that I choose. We have Sanctum Weaver. Sanctum Weaver is a big powerhouse in this deck, basically being a Sarah's Sanctum on a stick. Difference is this is not $200, and you can sacrifice it to make it an enchantment that taps. You can also leave it in your grave for a combo I will cover as I continue here. We have Rift Sweeper, because if you remember I said you exile the cards to make them enchantments. That doesn't mean you can't bring them back and use them again. It just means that for now, you have to wait till you get a Rift Sweeper so you can bring it back and then exile it again later so you can get another copy of it. This is especially good with things such as the one I just mentioned, the Sanctum Weaver. Then we have Destiny Spinner. Destiny Spinner says creatures and enchantments can't be countered. Self-explanatory. Archivist of Ogma. Basically, this is the first part of the lock of many ways to lock your opponents out of the game. This says your opponent makes you draw a card and gain a life every time you, not makes you, but you draw a card, gain a life whenever they tutor. If they fetch, you just draw a card, gain a life. This will allow you to bring back any of your tutors or anything that they destroy that you don't want to be an enchantment right away, or just in general lands. This just locks your opponent from tutoring for the top, basically making it so they tutor from top 4. They can still hit, but it's very unlikely. Our opposition agent here is the MVP of the deck. Pretty much this in combination with a couple other cards make basically your opponent not be able to play Magic. Cestian Champion. This is one of 2 creatures with this effect that says Constellation. When an enchantment enters the battlefield, you draw a card. This itself isn't an enchantment though until you kill it, so just keep that in mind. You don't draw off it entering. This says when a creature you control dies. This is Grim Horror Specs. This is in Japanese, I apologize. When a creature you control dies, you draw a card. This, well, it's pretty self-explanatory. Let's just mill our opponents, get some creatures, and reanimate them, sack them, make them enchantments. This is the enchantment version of it. So this enters, draws you a card, and then when it dies, it draws you a card again, as well as it doubles up with the Cestian Champion. Now, Necrotic Ooze with the aforementioned cards before, one of which is the elf here, and then Sanctum Weaver. If you have those two in your graveyard, or any of the other -1 effects, which I do have one, you have infinite any color mana alongside of with that. And plus, you can make this an enchantment too, so it's an enchantment with all abilities. This is pretty self-explanatory, but I'll explain it anyway. Whenever a creature you control dies, you make a treasure. This is actually insane because you always have creatures dying, meaning you're always going to have treasures. Alms Collector says whenever your opponent draws two or more cards, you and him each draw a card instead. This is really good whenever you flash it when someone does like draw 6 effects, just so you and him draw a card and he doesn't get the value. This is the second effect that does that. This says put a -1/-1 counter to untap it. It also says tap it to make a target opponent discard a card. So you just do that infinitely when it's an enchantment. This is pretty strong in this deck, mainly because we do run Signets, meaning our Signets will tap for 6 mana each, as well as any of our other things that tap for like 2 or 3 or whatever mana will triple that. We do have a lot of life paying in this deck, so making it so we can't lose is an insane way to make it so your opponents just can't deal with you that easy. And then making this lose artifact and making it an enchantment, which we can easier protect, is pretty good. Void Winnower. Well, Void Winnower is a 2-pronged beast here. Along with being 11/9, he says your opponents cannot cast even spells. So this is insanely good, mainly because a lot of the board wipes in the game are even. There are some that are not, but a lot of them are even. Sorry about the shaking. Now we will get on to our legends. First we have Godok Teague. This one's foreign, but this one says non-creature spells with mana cost 5, I think, 4 or greater can't be cast, and then they can't cast X spells, if I'm not mistaken. Basically, any board wipe in the game they cannot cast. There are maybe 2 or 3 total board wipes that they can cast, but even then, for the most part, board wipes don't outright blow you out. We have Marlin the Mornsong. This, in combination with our Opposition Agent, which I'll sift through and then just bring to the top of the pile here. So, Marlin, Opposition Agent, these two basically say your opponent cannot search their library for cards. You instead search it, and your opponent can't draw cards. However, you get to search because Opposition Agent only works on your opponents, and you just get free cards the whole game with locking your opponent's draw step out. This turns all of those enchantments into Lion of War Elves, basically making it so they all tap for 1 green. Really strong. I've actually won a game because I top decked that and didn't just blow out my opponent by tapping all my creature enchantments. Then Vala, Keeper of Silence, basically locks down any opponent's creature effects, stating that, well, they can't be activated. Making this an enchantment is just really good. Aside from the legends you have seen, there is quite a few legends in this deck, which I will eventually, as we're going, you'll see. This is a very good legend itself, and tutoring for this, so you can tutor for your pieces to lock out opponents for certain reasons, is exceedingly powerful. This is another dies effect. This says when a creature you control dies, you may pay 2 life, draw a card. You can also sacrifice a creature to kill a creature if it's pretty weak, or you can just keep sacking creatures to do that. Chainer Dementia Master has a 2-pronged insanity build going with him. Aside from being good by himself, you can also put him into your graveyard with Necrotic Ooze on field and lose the first and last stipulations. The first stipulation is all nightmares get 1/1. Who cares? You don't really care about your creatures getting buffed. And then the last one is when Chainer Dimension Master leaves, you exile the nightmares from the game. Now, this just means you have pay 3 black mana to reanimate, and 3 life, to reanimate a creature. Any creature from any graveyard, including your opponent's. This does work with Eldrazi triggers, so trigger on stack, you can reanimate them, let them shuffle their deck, and then you just have a big beat stick that you can start swinging at them with. Then we have this. This is pretty self-explanatory. This is by far one of the most underrated cards that I've seen in Commander lately. If you are not running this and your deck has green in it, you're messing up, because even if you're just playing extra lands, it's just so explosive. This, just like the other one I showed you, this says your opponents can't cast spells during your turn, as well as it can't be countered itself, and being a 5/7 flying lifelink is nothing to scoff at. This, in combination with with either Marlin or with opposition, means if your opponent searches their deck, you make them sacrifice a creature, lose 10 life, and then search it for them. So it's pretty strong, because I believe the other effect is in a replacement, so you know still be able to do that. Plus, it says it's a 4/4 flying trample that says whenever another creature dies, you put a 1/1 counter on him, making him stronger. Beladros is a game winner by himself, but I'll explain it anyway. He generates pests for you. This happens even if it is an enchantment. Keep this in mind. As well as when it's in the graveyard and not an enchantment, you can always play Necrotic Ooze, and Necrotic Ooze will then have the pay 10 life to untap all your lands. Just food for thought if you wanted to just go, blow out your opponents real easy. Also, the fact that the pests are sack faller makes it so you can just kind of, snowball. This is Shuldred, this is Phyrexian, but if you don't know what he does, he's a 6/6 Swamp Walk Phyrexian Praetor that says, on your upkeep you reanimate a creature, on your opponent's upkeep they sacrifice a creature. Elish Norn, 7-drop, Vigilance, buff your creature, kill your opponents. This is a Vorinclex. This is also Phyrexian. If you don't know what he is, I believe he is a 7/6 Trample Phyrexian Praetor. He says your lands tap for 1 additional. Your opponent's lands have, when they are tapped, they are locked for 1 turn. Basically, they don't tap the next turn after. Our first big tutor, we have right here Razaketh. Razaketh is a insane tutor because he's repeatable, and you can just basically snowball just off of having him on the field. If you're not running him and you're playing black, you're not running it right. I'm sorry, friend. Then we have Avacyn Angel of Hope, protect all of our permanents. Now we go into the tutors. We have Vampiric, Scheming Symmetry. We choose this because early game, it doesn't matter what they tutor for, you're always going to get something that locks them out. Late game, it basically says, I have a creature that makes it so I tutor twice, 1 from my deck, 1 for your deck. Or I can make you sack. Imperial Seal, Demonic Tutor, Eladomri's Call, Grim Tutor, and then Idyllic Tutor for the rest of our regular tutors. Then we have a Survival of the Fittest, Evolutionary Leap. This is also a tutor in its own way. We have our protection package of Greater RMNC, protection / tutor with the Sterling Grove, Smothering Tithe. You need to tax them, get some more treasures, and of course Privileged Position. And then we tax them for attacking us. Our sack outlets, we have Altar of Dementia, Phyrexian Altar. Sorry, that was a Ashnod's Altar. This is Phyrexian Altar. Scroll Rack. I believe the name is Deathrender. Deathrender says if a equipped creature dies, cheat in a creature from your hand attached to Deathrender. Is really good for cheating in like powerhouses that normally you wouldn't want to cast because they'd just be countered or stuff like that. Now we have our speed ramp and stuff like that. We have Jeweled Lotus, Mana Vault, Soul Ring, Signets. This with the aforementioned Nyx Moon Ancient, I think it was, makes it so these tap for 6 each. We have all 3. Then we have the Arcane Signet, Felwar Stone, Grim Monolith, and lastly Command Sphere. Next we have our non-basic lands. We are using all 3 of the bounce lands. Am I taking an extra one? No. I do have a green-black Tainted, I just don't want to dig it out. But you have Tainted Fields, Crystal Vein. We have regular ones, but we're just using this because, might as well use the gold-bordered ones too. They need love. They're real cards. Come on, guys. That helps you ramp out your commander 1 turn faster. We have a Gemstone Mine. Same reason. Caves of Koilos. I don't own extra copies of the other 2 Pain lands. I do own them, but I don't own extras. Keep that in mind. I have a lot of commander decks. If you guys, once you guys are interested, or whether you're interested or not, I guess, I'm just going to be posting a lot of my commander decks on YouTube, just to kind of give you ideas if you want to do that. City of Brass, Gaia Reach Centurium. This is actually insane with this deck because I have had ways to just kind of like abuse it a little bit. whether it be untapping it with Belladros to just kind of dig through my deck or do other things. It's pretty good, so you can kind of go off with it. Murmuring Bosk. I don't have an extra of the Triome, but I do have them. Then I have all 3 Shocklands. Is that all 3? Yeah. Okay. We have Bountiful Promenade. I actually don't own extra copies of these ones either, so it is what it is. Nurturing Peatland. Same thing here. I only have 1 fetch currently in the deck, which is Marsh Flats. We have Exotic Orchard, Command Tower, Reliquary Tower, and then our basics. We have the most of swamps at 5, I believe. 5 swamps, 4 forests, and I think 3 plains. Yeah. And pretty much that's the deck. So, I hope you guys did enjoy that. Just before I do, sign off here, I will show you just a little bit of interaction on how this deck does work. So, I'll just throw out a couple of the key cards. Let's just throw out Ashnod's Altar into, we'll say something like this guy, just any of these pretty much. Like I'm not trying to put the whole field deck on the field, but I'm just going to show you like all the different combinations, how they work, so on and so forth. Alright, that's fine. So, just as an example here, we will go ahead and go over a little bit of the stuff you can do. So, with this in the yard, along with this, and you have, did I not pick them out? I didn't pick them out. You have Necrotic Ooze on the field. This will allow you to tap for infinite colored mana. That is a very, very good thing, making it so you can just kind of go off whenever you need to. Did I grab him? Oh, he's on top. I'm blind. So if you have those 2 in the yard, you just play Necrotic Ooze. Now, once you have Necrotic Ooze on the field, all you got to do from here is either kill it off, which is why you would have the Ashnod's Altar over here. You would sack this. This would become an enchantment. Now, this would tap for X colored mana. Even if it's 1, that's fine. So by itself, you can still tap it for 1 green, untap it, green, untap it, green, and then if you need white, 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 black, black, black. Obviously, if you have any more enchantments, you just go off from there. Then, of course, if you have this instead in the grave, you can also, make your opponent discard their whole hand. If you have Chainer Dementia Master in the yard, you can reanimate everything on their field. And then this isn't, I believe, most of the good abilities of your deck, but there are other abilities. Obviously, Razaketh, if he's in the yard, is very strong. So aside from that infinite combo, what we have to lock your opponents are, we have Garak Teague, making it so they cannot wipe you as easily. Then if you have Marlene, plus, you gotta find him now. Let's see. There you go. Opposition Agent. Marlene Opposition Agent just basically says your opponents cannot draw cards, your opponents cannot search their libraries, and they're just locked with whatever they have in hand. And of course, with this on the field means they cannot blow anything up as far as field wipes. Of course, there are issues with, them targeting your stuff, so having your protections out first is usually the way you go, as well as maybe just throwing an Avacyn on the field anytime, making it an enchantment, something like that. So basically, once you get going, your opponents won't be able to do anything. You start dropping stuff like Linvala. They can't play the game. You start killing all their creatures. If they're running a weenie deck, they just outright die. And then making it so they can't play even spells will make it even harder for them. Alms Collector makes it so they can't, draw infinite cards, meaning making it so you and them will both draw cards instead, which can be very, very invaluable to you and horrible for them. So those are just a couple of the real simple interactions you can do with this deck, at least with my variant of this deck. Now, if you guys want to see anything further, the further development of the deck as I, keep getting cards, keep getting lands, I will post it. As well as, don't be afraid to leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you like Magic the Gathering content, or even any of the games that I play and want to, just support me that way, feel free to. As always, it's been a good one, and take it easy, everybody. It was fun.